Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our sixth edition of CFO Insights. I'm Lorene DeBono, Managing Partner of FLG Partners, which is the preeminent interim CFO and board advisory firm in the United States. Today, we are happy to have Andrew Levitch, one of our newest partners, join us for lessons learned by a life sciences CFO. Before we begin, let me tell you a little bit about Andrew and his background. Andrew joined FLG in early 2021 with unusually broad experience in life sciences and technology, encompassing subsectors from biotech, med devices, and diagnostics to digital health and manufacturing. Prior to coming to FLG, Andrew spent 10 years with a strategic advisory firm that he founded, providing C-suite and strategic advisory services to private equity and venture-backed companies, as well as to Merck's Global Health Innovation Fund. Previous to that, Andrew spent 16 years at Merck in strategic, operational, finance, and marketing roles, including as Senior Director, Global Scientific Strategy for Portfolio Management. He was CFO and COO of Sirna Therapeutics after Merck acquired the company for $1 billion, and he served as the CFO for Merck's $2 billion hypertension heart failure franchise, amongst other high-profile company assignments. So let's begin our conversation. Welcome, Andrew. Tell us in your own words about how you got to where you are today, which is obviously a well-respected biotech, pharma, medtech CFO with very broad functional and operational experience.
Thanks, Lorene, and it's really a pleasure to have joined the ranks of FLG. I found the experience amazing, both in terms of the professionalism of all the partners and the camaraderie that exists within the firm.
Great.
In terms of me, I think I would point to two factors that were instrumental to my decision to follow the career path of CFO. The first was my aptitude for numbers. I started college after getting out of the Navy and took an accounting course because I was always good with numbers and I wanted to learn more. This accounting course really piqued my interest and ultimately led me to pursue an undergraduate degree in accounting. While in school, I also worked as a bookkeeper for a small company and later moved on to working in public accounting. Through these roles, I realized that building a foundation in numbers gave me a deeper understanding about the financial position of a company and enabled me to engage in strategic discussions with the management team. I was better prepared to help plan the company's future and not just report on its past. Over time, I pursued roles of increasing responsibility in finance and eventually moved into the CFO role. I believe this foundation in numbers has served me well throughout my career. The second factor which helped me shape my professional focus was my passion for life sciences. This passion dates back to when I was a kid. My father worked in clinical and regulatory affairs at a large pharma company and eventually started his own consulting firm. Talking with him about the projects he was working on and the contributions he made to the development and regulatory approval of life-saving therapies had a large impact on me and still does to this day. After honing my skills in public accounting for a few years, I started exploring opportunities within the pharma industry and was fortunate enough to land a job at Merck. And over the next 16 years, I held a wide variety of roles at Merck in finance, marketing, and in the strategic and operations side of the R&D division. The diversity of this experience enabled me to become an expert in many aspects of pharma. In 2011, I left Merck to start consulting, and Merck's Global Health Innovation Fund became my largest client. The fund invests in adjacencies to their therapies, digital health, medtech, real-world evidence, and diagnostics, to name a few. I was an advisor to the fund, but also had the opportunity to work directly with many of the portfolio companies in roles ranging from short-term operational assessments to long-term board member, CFO, and in one instance, a CEO assignment. So as a consultant, I've been able to gain exposure to a whole host of life science companies beyond large pharma, which significantly expanded the diversity of my experience.
So that was a great summary of your background, Andrew, and how you've kind of honed your skills along the way. And I didn't realize that your dad was quite a big influence in your career and almost similar in track.
Yeah, he left and started consulting and was
yeah,
yes.
Totally. And your Merck experience and the Global Health Innovation Fund experience in particular clearly were super pivotal for you. So with all of that, tell me, what do you consider to be your sweet spot, your top skill, or what you would say your best talent is as a CFO, and why?
Sure. So I've always taken pride in my ability to quickly understand the business that I'm working with and help identify opportunities and issues, and to evaluate and execute ways to leverage or mitigate them. Additionally, I've really enjoyed working with C-suite and board members and to think through the implications of strategic choices from a financial and business perspective with them. I think every CFO has to have a core set of skills just to be a CFO. You know, the technical, the communication, planning, and analytical skills as an example. And over the past decade as a consulting CFO, I've been able to hone those skills and also gain valuable experience that I bring to each new engagement. The ability to ascend the client-specific learning curves enables me to, in a very short period of time, begin contributing in my role as the CFO and leverage my knowledge and independent perspective for the company's benefit and success. As a CFO, it is important to look at the big picture, but also understand the details.
You know, I cannot agree with you more in that what's so key is to have those finance skill sets, number one, and then overlay them with the strategic and big picture focus. And then being able to have the skills to communicate all of it, right, to your board, your CEO, and your peer set. So this is exactly what we at FLG look for in our partners. So we're delighted to have you with us. Now, let me shift gears a bit and tell me about what you consider to be the best CFO job you have held during your career. What would you say, Andrew, were the three best takeaways from your experience, and why?
Sure. So, Laureen, to be completely honest, I don't have a best CFO job.
What? No way.
They've been all great. What I mean by that is, you know, some of them have been more difficult than others, but there's always learnings from each of them. So it's hard to pick a favorite, but I do have some great takeaways from many of them. For example, I've been the CFO of several companies that were distressed. Some of these assignments ended with successful exits via acquisition, but some didn't. The biggest learning that I took away from these experiences is that managing through tough circumstances really requires compassion. Often I was brought in to assess and help reshape the company's strategy for managing through a downturn. And as you know, that's usually a buzzword for layoffs that need to happen as well. And doing this in a compassionate manner is really key.
Those assignments are so tough. I totally agree with you.
Oh, yeah, they can be draining emotionally as well as physically, for sure. I've also worked as a CFO in earlier stage companies undergoing massive growth, but also some growing pains. My biggest learning from these situations is that you must appropriately and successfully balance priorities between planning for future success and managing cash flow. I found that going too far in either direction can really be fatal in terms of consequences for the business.
Totally. You are so right there.
And finally, for earlier stage high growth and in large companies, it's important to not lose sight of the external environment. I've run into situations where a company is only looking inward and not reacting to the world, including the competition around them. This is a true recipe for extinction.
I could not agree with you more, Andrew. Completely right on. So I wonder if you have an example of the toughest experience you've had as a CFO. Why was it so challenging, and what were the lessons that you learned?
Sure. So one that pops to the top of my head was an engagement with a wholly owned subsidiary of Merck. It was a 200 million revenue company with roughly 3,000 employees in international operations. Merck was looking to divest the company. Right when they started the sale process, the CFO resigned, and I was asked to step in as the CFO. I can think back to now and you know, the people at Merck saying, this is going to be a really easy, quick assignment. And
yeah, right.
and I look back and it was good that I was just rolling off another engagement that was taking a lot of time. I started this assignment in the third quarter of 2017, and it was supposed to be done by the end of the year. They just didn't tell me which year it was going to be done by. It ended up being the end of 2018 that we were out. So I had virtually no turnover with the existing CFO, just 3 days as it turned out. I also inherited a staff of 27 finance and admin folks. The controller side of the business had a high turnover with a lot of new hires, and there were significant technical accounting issues that needed to be addressed. As an example, the controller was actually a consultant when I started, and we made him an offer to join after I joined the company. After the company was sold, which took, I guess, 6 to 7 months, it really became apparent that the post-merger integration and then actually moving the accounting function to the acquiring company's headquarters in India was going to take a bulk of time.
Oh, I bet.
The transition of the finance department to the new company was not easy. I needed to keep staff from leaving and retain some critical staff longer than others. In one instance, one of the people I had to ask to stay longer than I was going to be with the company. The lesson I learned from this challenging situation is that it isn't just the money. So of course, stay bonuses were offered, all kinds of incentives were offered from a money perspective. And that's not truly what fully motivates people. Sure, it's important, but it's not the be all end all. It's really the compassion, the honest communication, and integrity of your leadership in substance and in style that are equally important.
I could not agree with you more. And that was a great story to tell our audience how you stepped in as a CFO right at the beginning of a sales process. It always takes longer than they tell you, right?
Oh, yes.
And then how you retain your team, and that it's not just cash or financial incentives. It has to be some other motivating factors that you can provide to them. So that was a great example for our audience. So with that, let's turn to an ancillary issue, which is how you mentor a team. So in your opinion, what are the 3 to 5 things that you tell your team so that you know that they're functioning at their very best?
Sure. So when I was at Merck, there was a really formal process for performance management, which included everything from setting objectives to frequent communication and performance reviews. This happened both individually and with teams. Along with the formal process, there was a lot of training, which really helped develop my skills. Over the years, I learned that in order to mentor a team, you needed to start by empowering the team to develop shared objectives and goals. This makes the entire team take ownership for its outcomes. I think second, as a team leader, you have to understand the individual goals of each of the team members and work with them to develop a path to achieve them. I think third is to allow the team to shine. By that, I truly mean give them the opportunity to gain exposure.
Absolutely.
Whether it's with the senior leadership team, the board, whomever, because that exposure not only builds their confidence, but it gets them out there for future opportunities within the company for them.
Absolutely right.
Fourth, and this may be one of the important ones as well, is communication, both individually and with team members. I think one of my mentors once said there should never be any surprises when having performance review, and that the only way to ensure that is through frequent communication.
I think those are great observations about mentoring, particularly about having good two-way communication, developing your team, and in my opinion, giving them the opportunity for exposure, because not only does it build their confidence, but it also builds loyalty to you and what you're trying to accomplish with the team. So those were great observations for the audience. Let's shift gears now and talk about how you work with your CEO and the board. What is the wisdom that you've learned over the years? What works and what doesn't?
Sure. I have an ongoing joke with one of my first people that I mentored from controller to CFO. And I just recently used this story with an ongoing coaching client. It has to do with the numbers you use as a CFO when presenting to the CEO and board. The first step is getting rid of the numbers after the decimal place, and depending on the size of the company, using thousands, millions, or billions.
So right. You're so right on that one.
Yeah. To me, this is a true litmus test of a person's ability to move from just thinking about the numbers to thinking about the strategy. I think second on the list is to learn the business you are in, not just inside the company, which is really important, but also the competitive landscape. As a CFO, you're required to have this understanding in order to be a true business partner with a leadership team. Third, it is very important to have the ability to effectively communicate and build strong relationships with the CEO, the entire leadership, the board, and other colleagues. And I think finally, to have fun. We spend most of our time at work, and creating a fun environment within your team as a CFO will lead to much greater job as well as personal satisfaction.
Those are great pointers for the audience. Thank you for that. So let's again turn the tables and talk about your own experience as a board member or an audit committee member, because I know that you do have that kind of experience. So in that type of arena, how do you interact with the sitting CFO? Any lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, so having the opportunity to sit on both sides of that table is really beneficial. So, and before becoming a board member myself, I spent a lot of time interacting and advising boards as a CFO. That experience helped me transition into those board roles. As a board member and audit committee member for a public company, there was a large emphasis on everything the company needed to do from a compliance perspective. We also had some difficult business issues to deal with. I worked closely with the CEO and CFO, the entire management team, on the strategic plan, which eventually led to an exit. I coached the CEO to help him communicate with the board in a more effective manner, and work directly with the CFO on some of the analysis and modeling that helped inform the exit.
Did you like those roles?
So yeah, so it was a great company, and I actually became friends with the CEO. The CFO actually wound up retiring shortly after this exit. And I think with a lot of the consulting engagements, you truly do make friends for life within the companies.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one last question for you, Andrew. You joined us, FLG Partners, in the spring of 2021. What do you hope will be your future areas of focus as an FLG partner?
Sure. So, the first one is to continue my nearly lifelong passion with working together with life science companies. And at FLG, we really have a strong life science group, and I'm glad to be surrounded by so much talent that exists within that group. I'm also following all the hot issues in life sciences, from digital health to CRISPR, but really enjoy engaging as a CFO and helping companies achieve their objectives around improving lives. I also enjoy mentoring finance folks as they grow into CFO roles, and coaching existing CFOs too.
That's great. And we are so excited that you have joined us. And I can see already with the clients that you've been helping us with, you've just done a really excellent job.
Thanks.
So again, we so appreciated you joining us today. And I hope our audience enjoyed our conversation. Do join us, everyone, tomorrow, August 17th at 8 a.m. for a roundtable event, What Do Investors Want? I think it's going to be a great discussion. We're going to focus on how to set up your next financing round successfully. So you want to join us? And please register today at our website, www.flgpartners.com. And finally, we have another panel event on November 3rd, which is CFOs Building Consumer Brands, which features our great CPG and e-commerce partner team. So we hope that you'll join us for that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.